Welcome to a new daily top AskReddit video. Today's topic.
Dear Hotel Receptionists of Reddit, who was the most horrible guest you have ever encountered? It all started when the guest checked in late one evening. He seemed normal enough until he asked, "Does my room come with a microwave?" I told it didn't. He looked absolutely devastated and said, "I cannot survive without a microwave." I offered to warm something up for him if needed, but that wasn't good enough. He stormed out and came back an hour later, dragging a full-size microwave he'd purchased from a nearby store. The trouble really started at 3 a.m. when the fire alarm went off, waking the entire hotel. Turns out, Mr. Midnight Microwave decided to cook a steak in his new appliance. Not just heat it, he'd seasoned it, wrapped it in foil, and popped it in like it was an oven. The foil caused a small fire, which set off the sprinklers in his room. By the time we got there, his room was soaked, the microwave was destroyed, and he was trying to save his steak by patting it dry with hotel towels. When asked why he'd thought this was a good idea, he replied, "I didn't know microwaves couldn't cook steak." This is your fault for not having one in the room in the first place. Needless to say, he was charged for the damage. The room was out of commission for weeks. He cannot survive without a microwave, yet somehow acted as if this was the first one he'd ever used. We had a guest whose kid squat walked a turd, diarrhea 12 feet in a line into the pool, then demanded we clean up the child's poo. Then they were upset that we had to close the pool. Also had a creepy old man come up to me asking me to bring rubber duckies to his room for his bath every night in a 5-star hotel, and I'd always just kinda nervously laugh. I'm living in far north Queensland in Australia, where there are lots of creatures. They get in sometimes. No matter how nice the hotel is, it's the rainforest. We had a guest from NZ come screaming at us about a lizard infestation because she had found a 1-inch gecko in her room. She said her kids were afraid, they were not, and it was unsanitary and unsafe. We removed the lizard and she demanded an entire new room. Then she left a very nasty review because one of us cracked a smile at the term lizard infestation. God, I have so many weird stories I can't even remember half of them. Edit, this seems to be primarily a gecko thread. Now here's a video I took of a gecko fight I saw on my porch the other night. Lizard tax. Had a gecko in the room one time and my father-in-law just says, "They're good luck, and they eat bugs." We left the gecko be. Good choice. I'd much rather have a gecko than a spider in the room. I find geckos quite cute anyway. We were throwing a garden party where guests can enjoy cocktails and apps in the garden. We had a woman crying hysterically asking us to control the mosquitoes and flies in the garden. The manager at the time stated, "I cannot control Mother Nature, ma'am." Woman lost it. I worked in a national park that had homeowners in it. One day a woman came in very upset demanding we do something about the deer eating the flowers in her garden. Her words were, "Can't you do something about the deer so we can enjoy nature?" I used to work as a night receptionist at a hotel in Jalandhar, India a few years ago. Most nights were uneventful, but one guest will forever be burned into my memory. It was around 2 a.m. when a man came stumbling to the front desk, looking panicked. He whispered, "There's someone in my room." Naturally, I was alarmed. I immediately checked the system to ensure he hadn't been double booked, but everything looked fine. I offered to check the room with him. As we entered, I turned on the lights, and there it was, the intruder. It was a life-sized cutout of a Bollywood actor that we had placed in the hallway for a promotion earlier that day. For some reason, he had brought it into his room, propped it in a corner, and forgotten about it. I tried to keep a straight face as he muttered something about being too tired, and shuffled back to bed. The next morning, he checked out like nothing had happened. But I'll never forget having to rescue someone from their own cardboard celebrity at 2 a.m. This reminded me of the time my dad got out the autographed cardboard cutout of Sting from WWE, forgot about it, then punched it after getting scared at like 5 a.m. Thankfully, I met Sting again when I was 15, so I was able to get more autographs from him, and it is a funny story now, lol. That Sting is remembered as being from WWE will never stop being tragic. There was this one guest who demanded a room upgrade because their aura didn't vibe with the one they booked. When told no, they started yelling, cursed the staff, and threatened to leave a bad review, only to call back later asking for a discount because they forgot their wallet. Well, they have unusual kind of vibe, indeed. We had a guru and her 2 associates come in once. The associates weren't allowed to speak. The guru called down to the front desk because the polyester mattress cover was interfering with her aura. She said she had to have a natural cotton fiber cover. So we found a different brand, cut out the tag that said polyester, told her it was cotton, and put it on her bed. Next day she reported her aura was fine after sleeping on the cotton cover. Meanwhile, while we were changing her bed, her associates ate the entire week's worth of bananas in the dining room plus a shit ton of sausage. Neither one of them weighed over 100 pounds. And during all that, one of our housekeepers went into a room and found a knit comb and empty bottles of lice shampoo. Turns out a family had rented 3 or 4 different rooms all over the hotel. One of the kids had lice and was running in and out of all their rooms. I thought our manager was going to quit that day. Probably the guy at a stag party who managed to shit himself in the lobby and then run away, pursued by security as he dribbled a trail of diarrhea across the lobby, up the stairs, in the lift, etc., like the world's worst Hansel and Gretel. When security caught up to the surprisingly fast, drunk guy, he had made it to the first floor public bathroom and flooded it, trying to flush his trousers and underwear. Just standing there, runny shit dripping down his legs and full bait and tackle swinging in the breeze. I once stayed at a hotel next to an event center I was volunteer staffing at. I had a hotel room in a hotel maybe 300 meters from the event center. Well, what no one realized was that the bridge over the railway between the event center and the hotel was shut for repairs and the detour was 8 miles. I hadn't slept for 48 hours mid-event and decided I absolutely had to sleep right then, so decided to climb across this building site of a railway bridge at about 2 a.m. I stumbled and fell on a pile of wet cement gravel, and I mean I ate that shit face first at full speed. I got up and blearily stumbled back to the hotel and crawled into bed. In the morning I woke up, and as I got down to the ground floor of the hotel there was gravel everywhere. There was a trail of it right through the hotel lobby back to the entrance, and staff frantically trying to sweep it up. Apparently, some drunk guest had trapped it in. Hey, I was sober as a judge, just very tired and hurt, and that the night staff had just left it there for the day team to deal with. So yeah, I was accidentally deemed to be drunk and caused a gravelly mess in a hotel lobby despite having had no alcohol. Hey, at least you didn't shit yourself and run away. Had a guest who clogged the toilet, blamed us for faulty plumbing, and then left a handwritten complaint on the bathroom mirror in lipstick. 10 out of 10. We had to rent a 400 room in Maine for a wedding and the toilet did not work. When we complained, we just got a shrug. No help. My daughter had to take off the toilet top, use a bent bobby pin to fix the old chain contraption, and got it working again. Then we realized there was no coffee pot for morning. We went to ask about it and again got a shrug. No coffee. WTF. I think what really pissed me off was to pay for the room and get there, only to be told it wasn't the final cost and we had to pay $200 more. And we had to have the room. Name and shame. Probably the one who shat into the ice machine, or the one who mugged a blind woman and stole her cane, or the one who turned on the fire hose and flooded their floor. Oh, wait, that was the same guy who shat into the ice machine. Or the one who slapped me because an ice storm hit, the phones were down, and I had to knock on doors if they had scheduled wake-up calls. I'm sorry, but they shat into the ice machine. Fearful, fearful, fearful. Oh man. The ice machine in the hotel I worked at was behind our desk with a door for guests. Our guest computer was there too. One of our drivers would watch porn on it and get really upset when you pointed it out. He also denied it. We had a guest who clearly had a pet in his bag and kept denying it. The bag was squirming and the dog inside was whining. What a selfish piece of shit to do that to the dog. Woman shrugging, medium light skin tone. My dad used to do security at a hotel and casino. Kids were not allowed on the property. People would sneak their kids in suitcases and leave them in the room while they went to gamble. Inevitably someone would hear the kids and the family would be kicked out. Did they at least take them out of the suitcases? People like that are the worst. In their brains, they think they're saving the dog, but in reality, they're the dog's captor and warden. Okay, sneaking in pets is bad, but kids were worse. Always pissed me off. Yeah, the owner wanted like $20 extra, but if there's a fire I need to account for all living things. I've got a couple. There's a lady who has been a regular guest at my hotel for decades and is crazy entitled. Recently she decided she didn't like the room she was given, but rather than tell the front desk she found a maintenance worker and got him to let her into a room that wasn't hers by claiming that she'd lost her key. Then she proceeded to move all of her stuff into the new room. Another guest was a homeless lady who had been staying at the hotel for a few months. Apparently a friend of her father's was paying for it. One night she was found in the dry storage room stealing food. When she was evicted they found her room was full of giant piles of stuff she'd apparently been stealing throughout her entire stay. It was like a hoarder's house. The next day she snuck back into the hotel and tried to steal more stuff, then set up a camp in the parking lot until the police were called. Finally, years ago I was working at a hostel in Kyiv. We had this one guest who was absolutely disgusting. He would sit in the kitchen and shovel food into his mouth while staring off into space. Crumbs falling all over his body and the floor, then eventually get up and leave without cleaning up after himself. He never talked and he smelled awful. One night when I was thankfully out with my ex, apparently he shit himself in his sleep so badly it woke up everyone in the dorm. My coworker was unable to wake him up and he didn't seem to be breathing, so he called an ambulance. Paramedics came to revive him. Apparently he's taken a bunch of pills while drinking. Everyone in that dorm had to sleep in the common room that night. All the bedding was thrown away, and the smell still lingered for a couple of days. She found a maintenance worker and got him to let her into a room that wasn't hers by claiming that she'd lost her key. How did she know it was unoccupied? Person shrugging, I would guess that she knocked on the door, but I have no idea. The same woman, years ago, got into a fight with a manager who denied some request. She demanded that the manager be fired if she would stop coming. Coincidentally, the manager was transferred to another location around that time. To this day the woman brags about how she got a manager fired.